Hello everybody, Coop here. Patch 110 just came out like 10 minutes ago, and we've been doing a whole bunch of testing, checking out the new patch, and I'm going to do my best to try and summarize what we have learned for you guys. We're just going to read through the patch notes, and I'm going to try my best to explain what all this stuff means. It's hard to completely summarize exactly what has changed just by looking at these patch notes because they're very vague. The invulnerability window of Quickstep and Bloodhound Step has been reduced, and what this has been, the math on this is 6 frames, by the way. So Bloodhound Step used to be 16 frames of invulnerability, and it is now 10. Yes! Let's go! Yes! Just great. Yes. Pog. Awesome. Fantastic. So increased poise damage of all weapons and some spells and incantations. Increased poise when attacking with some skills, spells, incantations, and some types of weapons. Added damage reduction when performing attacks with some skills, spells, and incantations, and some types of weapon attacks that generate poise. So what all these essentially mean is that the entire poise system has been turned on its head. Straight swords can now break maximum poise. For those of you who aren't super into the numbers, what that basically means is before, having really heavy armor in PvP meant you could resist a lot of attacks, and there were a lot of setups that were completely not viable because they were unable to break people with heavy armor poise. Now, if there are 3 people with the maximum amount of poise all standing there, and you sweep them with a straight sword, all 3 of them are going to get stunned. So what that means for Elden Ring is that the passive poise system that we have gotten so used to over this entire year is now out the window. And whether this is going to be a good thing or a bad thing, it is way too early for us to tell. We're going to have to be testing the numbers. We're going to have to be really poking and prodding the system to find out whether this is actually going to end up being good or not. My take is that this is going to be something that is good for us in the long term, but it's going to be a learning requirement for those of us who have come to rely on passive poise like myself. What this should mean generally, though, is that Fashion Souls is back, because having that high poise number is now going to be less important. It's still going to be important for not getting staggered by things like daggers and throwing knives and things like that, because if you get staggered by those, that's going to be really problematic. You're going to get blendered like crazy. Another change that was, again, this is not noted in here, is that the second attack of most weapons has reduced poise damage. So with a straight sword, for example, you would hit with the first one, the person would be stunned, and then if you try and combo, like in Dark Souls 3, it does less poise damage. So those wouldn't necessarily poise combo together. So you would be able to dodge the second hit, or if you trade the second hit, it does less damage, so you might be able to actually trade your opponent more, depending on the weapon that you have. A big feature of this is that the hyper armor has been given damage reduction. So we did a bit of testing, and the damage reduction on hyper armor seems to be about 20%. So if you have a great sword and you're hit mid animation and it doesn't interrupt you, that damage that you've received is now 20% less. And a very important feature of this thing is that is down here, where it says adjusted the player damage animation so that the attack of the direction is not unintentionally shifted when getting hit while attacking with some types of weapons that generate poise. What this essentially means is something that the community has called Aimpunch has been deleted on specific categories. So it seems that Aimpunch still applies to things like heavy thrusting swords and halberds, but it doesn't apply to colossal weapons, colossal swords, colossal weapons. All of the bigger weapons seem to not have any kind of aim punch anymore. So this means that they can more reliably hyper armor people. So we may be entering the era of colossal weapons actually being good. With the damage reduction, with no aim punch, there's a lot of good reasons to be running the big bonk weapons and trying to outtrade people. That said, there's also still space for faster weapons, because if I come at you with a straight sword and you have your big colossal sword, if I'm fast enough, you might not be able to swing fast enough to get into your hyper armor. So I think there's just going to be a lot of interesting interplay here. The entire kind of meta of PvP has now been completely turned on its head, and we need to completely relearn the game. So for myself personally, as a content creator of Elden Ring, this is muy bueno, dude. I love this. I'm super into this. This basically means that the entire PvP spectrum has been refreshed. This means that it's time for me to learn and relearn the way that this game works, and I'm very excited to see what kind of builds and meta emerges on top from all of this stuff. There are a last couple things here that are worth celebrating. So first of all, critical hit angles have been extended. So your parries, your ripostes, and your backstabs, the angles at which you can grab them are now buffed. So that's just a straight up backstab buff. Super awesome. Decrease the damage reduction granted by some skills, incantations, and items. So this is probably referring to things like Endure, which is great. Increased critical hit damage. I'm going to be honest, I don't know about this one. I don't know if we needed more critical hit damage, but as someone who loves parrying and backstabbing, I mean, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Decreased recovery time after missing a critical hit. So if you get a random backstab queue here, you're not going to be punished as much, which is awesome. And increase the poise damage of attacks that occur after missing a critical hit. So when you do that animation of your character acts like missing, that does more poise damage now, which is awesome. There are some bug fixes and stuff, which I'm really tired. It's so late. I don't want to get into all of the little details. The final conclusions to take away from this for me is that this is all really exciting, big changes, and this is a great time for you to jump into invasions, jump into duels, and look and see what is going on with the Elden Ring meta. Generally speaking, what this is going to mean is that less of your opponents are going to be able to rely on passive poise, and generally speaking, what that means is more skillful expression of overall. We're still going to have to see how the numbers actually shake out and what comes out on top, but I'm hopeful that this means that more setups are now viable in the game, and it's not just going to be power stance great spears, power stance spears, other setups like that, because these faster setups, things like single straight sword, power stance straight swords, are going to be very powerful. I am a little bit worried. If I have one worry, my worry is that power stance straight swords are going to be still way too powerful, but again, we're just gonna kind of have to wait and see on that one as well. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the patch. I'm just gonna be uploading this completely raw, unedited, because that's just where we are at right now. And I will see you guys tomorrow. And yeah, woo. Okay, here we go.